I'm Megs, your guide on this exciting journey to mastering the art of eyebrows. Either you're a newbie or a seasoned pro, it doesn't matter. This podcast is your go-to resource for all things brows. I've gathered industry experts, insider tips, and inspiring success stories to help you enhance your skills, boost your confidence, and take your brow game to new heights. Happy Thursday, welcome back. I am super excited for today's episode. We have another guest on, Tamara, and I'm so excited for you to hear her story. We are 3 hours different, so there is a little bit of a delay in our audio, and for whatever reason, my sound is slightly more quiet in some areas. So just a little heads up and PSA about that. But to get into our guest, she is originally from Brazil and she moved to the United States in 2002 with her parents, and she got into the beauty industry at 17 and then was able to open her business at 22 years old. Such a boss. I am so excited for you to hear her story and how passionate she is about this industry and all of the possibilities that are within it. So let's get into it. I can't wait for you to hear. Welcome back to Education. I am here today with Tamara. I'm so excited. How are you doing today?
I am good. I'm so excited to be here.
Hey. It's been a long time coming. We've been chatting about it for a while. I'm super stoked to have another brow artist on, obviously on Brow Education, but you are also another educator and you do threading, correct?
I am, yes. I love it. Yes, that is, yeah. That is one of the things that I didn't even realize when you said, like, oh, you do hand tied. I was like, oh, that's what this is called. Like, I was doing threading. I was like, it's just threading. Like, I do the hand tied method. I'm like, oh, there's a name.
That kills me. I love that so much.
Granted, I don't teach threading. I don't take that.
Call it anything other than threading either. And then I started seeing, I was like, oh, I thread. And then I'd get questions and people would be like, well, how? And I was like, oh, well, I guess I should clarify that I do the hand tied method. I'm not like a thread in my mouth. It's not looping around my neck or anything like that.
Exactly. I tried to, when I first learned, I learned it through the neck. I was very adamant about not doing it through the mouth, but I tried to do it through the neck, and I was just like, you guys, this back and forth movement, like my back hurts.
That's exactly,
the hand tie is so much easier.
Videos. I'm like, why would you want your whole body involved? Like, let's just leave it to the wrist and hand.
I feel like it can be done hand tied. Why are we doing? But
that's what I'm saying. I'm like, we've reached the easiest, most like ergonomic way. Why are we still doing it the other way?
Exactly. If it can be done this way, but you know, to each their own. So.
Absolutely. I'm not knocking anything. I totally get it. So, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yeah, so I am a brow artist. I actually offer everything in my business in terms of body waxing and things like that. But I like to claim brow artistry because I would say that's 96% of my business. I've been in the industry for 12 years. So I actually started in high school. So it's been a long time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'll be 30 this year. So I've been doing it for a while. But yeah, I started in high school just working front desk at like a wax salon. That's why I do the full body waxing. And I did about 6 years there, went off on my own. And I, hilariously enough, went off on my own to do cosmetic tattooing, permanent makeup. And that's kind of how it led into the brows. But I realized I did not like permanent makeup because I only see people once every 2 years or once or two, 2 times. It wasn't enough for me. And I'm such a social person. I like to build relationships. So I started to do a lot of brow shaping, natural shaping, and found myself here. So I think, yeah, it's been a journey, but that's kind of how I got into it. And then found myself loving the natural brow artistry and have been doing it ever since. And now I'm shifting into more of like, I started the business as I just wanted to do brows. And now I feel like I'm starting to put that business owner hat on and being like, okay, what do I do now with the business? Like, I'm the brow artist. Now what do I do as a business owner? Yeah. So I feel like 12 years has been, 12 years has been dedicated to the brows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So 12 years dedicated to the brows. And now I'm like, all right, now let's start shifting a little bit more into the business side and like really focus on that. Not that I'm not going to focus on brows, but like really focus on that, um, and see where that
Yeah,
takes
no.
us.
Yes, I love it. And I think it's a natural avenue. Like I think that once you kind of sharpen your skill, you feel at that confidence level, you're out on your own and now you're like, okay, holy crap, now it's my responsibility for this to grow, for this to stay, consistent
Yes.
and,
Oh yeah.
all of the P's and Q's that you have to have in a row when you're running your own business.
Literally. And I feel like in this industry, when we start our business, I always say that in the beginning you have to be a little delusional. You like what is the young kids say, like Delulu or something. You have to
Yes,
be delusional.
I
If
agree.
you started out with this like business plan and this whole situation going, I mean, you'd probably be successful, but to me it was overwhelming.
I
It
agree.
was like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, that I would have to learn two things at once. So when I started it, I was like, I just want to do brows. I don't
Mm-hmm.
care. I don't care about the rest of the stuff. I don't know how to do the
Absolutely.
math. I don't know. I just want to do brows.
Yep.
And
As
I do
long as I can
credit
pay
my
my bills.
success to that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like as long as at the end of the math, I'm not losing money and my bills are being paid, I think we're good. We're doing okay. It's kind of
And I think a lot of us start that way. I think a lot of us are like, I have this skill, let me just like grow it and see what I can do. I have clients, like I'm making money, let's see what happens. And then you're like a little ways down the line, you're
exactly.
like, oh wait, hold on. What do I do with the money? How do I grow that? How do I, I want to
Or
actually
like just
not
the
be behind the chair
simple
all the time.
exact well, just the simple math of like, is my business profitable? Like is I didn't know what that meant for the long I swear to God, I've been a business owner for 6 years and I have not calculated profit margins until about 2 years ago. Because I had
I
no
think that's
idea. As long
true.
as my bills were being paid, we're good.
Because like as crazy as it sounds, like I think that the industry is obviously it's lucrative. Like that we wouldn't all be in
Yeah,
it or doing it if there wasn't money to be made. So I think the problem is that
of
that's where it
course.
gets skewed. Is you start getting that money in and you're like, oh, we're fine, and then all of a sudden you reel back and you're like, oh wait, hold on, are we? Are we okay?
Yes.
Is this
It's
sustainable?
like, wait, is this sustainable? And like if I were to get hurt, or if I were to if something
Yes,
like family planning, if I have to take time to on maternity leave and I were to pay someone to do my job, is there money left over? That's really
absolutely.
the biggest thing about putting on that business hat of like, it's not about I make this much, it's how much do I make as a brow artist as an employee of my business
Hmm.
versus how much am I taking home as the owner of the business.
Hmm.
And still paying yourself for all the extra jobs that you do, because a business owner,
Absolutely.
you're a company, I don't know, like Jeff Bezos, I don't even think he probably just sits on the board, but let's say he owns
Right.
Amazon. He's not doing HR. He's not like, there's teams of people that do it.
Absolutely.
So if you were to
Absolutely. And that's
scale
what
it
the business
down,
grow. Hmm.
yes, and if you were to scale it down to our size, we're doing all those jobs and all those jobs have a market value to it. There's a market price that you pay an employee to do it. And so you have to see like, is your business profitable when you're paying yourself market value, or even just God, minimum wage? Like, are you
Absolutely.
paying yourself minimum wage for the job you're doing?
And I think a lot of us wouldn't even know how to answer that question, which is so shitty. You want to
No.
know that you're making more than that.
Yep. Yes. And I think that's the biggest thing about looking at the brow industry as I'm a career brow artist, I'm an entrepreneur business woman, is separating the two and saying, do I want that? Do I want to be a brow artist and focus completely on that? Or do I want to take time to also build the skills and learn how to do the math and learn how to do all the other jobs that come with business ownership, and what does my career look like on both avenues,
Hmm.
where I think it gets really muddy in our industry
Hmm. I
because
agree.
there's this idea that like, you just make more money, go into owning your own business, and it's yes, but but
But
you it's another skill you're learning, it's another job, really,
and I think
like
it's a
at
question
least
that we
five
don't
other
ask
jobs.
ourselves enough. Like, I don't think that we are
No.
retrospective enough when before making that decision. I think a lot of us in the industry jump to there and then
Yeah.
we all of a sudden kind of backtrack where we're like, oh shit, this is a lot more than I was
You're like,
planning. Like,
wait.
am I capable of this?
Yeah. And it's not even am I capable of it, because I think there's hard work to be done on both ends as a business owner and as an employee of a business. You can work just as hard on both. Is it, do I enjoy this? Do I like this?
Oh,
I love being an entrepreneur with every fiber of my being. It is a child to me. My business is my child per se. Like I I do all the extra work because I sit there and it's gratifying. I come home
mhm.
and I'm like, dang, I built that. Like we just expanded and we have a storefront now. I walk in and I'm like, holy I did that. You know, I don't want to
Yes.
cuss. I was like, wait.
No, I mean, totally fine. Totally fine. We
Yeah.
are in
Okay.
a podcast.
Okay. Yeah. And I was like, wait. I like stopped myself. But yeah, I do that. And it's like this gratification of like, it's a lot of hard work, but it's something that I did for myself. However, that is not for everyone. And I don't say that as in like, if you don't like it, you're below me. No, it's just not for
No.
everyone. You might not like this, and that is okay. You still have a legitimate career in the beauty industry if you do not
Thank
want to own and
you.
be an entrepreneur.
Yes. Oh my God, finally, someone's saying it. I just feel like there's so much like I don't know, fantasy kind of a vibe around being a solopreneur. And I just feel like it's okay if that's not your thing. It's okay if you want to just be an employee,
Yes.
clock in, and then clock out. Like that is okay.
Yes.
It's still a career. You're still doing like what you love. And this business aspect is not for everybody. And I think that
Yeah.
I love that you said that because I praise you for that because I think that you're right. When you are an entrepreneur and you're doing all the things, you really have to freaking love
Yeah.
it. You have to be obsessed with it because
Yeah.
it's so much work. But it's not for everybody.
It's time consuming. It's 24/7.
Mhm.
And I don't say this to be like, don't do it, it sucks. Like when I say it's time consuming, it's I love it. I cannot stress enough how much I freaking love being a business owner. It's a passion for me.
It's
But
the 2
it's
a.m.
work.
remembering all the things and making the lists and being excited about a new venture.
Exactly.
Absolutely. It's one of those things where you kind of get to the point where you're like, there's actually no other option for me because I'm just so obsessed with this. I genuinely could not see myself doing
Yes.
anything else.
One of the cues I think looking back, and I love how you had a question as well about the best piece of advice for your younger self. I'm like going into
Yeah,
yours, but
let's get into
one
it.
of that kind of got me jotted into going back into my younger days when I first started. And I think if you're trying to figure out if that's the path you want to take in your career is being a solo entrepreneur or an entrepreneur in general, um, if you are going into work and you're working for somebody else and you're an employee and you care so much about that place to a point where you cannot like do the boundary between I'm an employee, you pay me for this time or for this production, and then I leave and I let it go. If you're more invested than the time you're actually paid to be there, you probably will enjoy entrepreneurship because you
That is
care so much about that
brilliant.
business. You could care
Yeah.
about your own. And that was the cue for me. Like I used to work at the place that I work was a toxic environment, let's say that. And it's actually the way I left was one of the owners and we got into an argument over something really dumb, but it was like the camel, what is the needle that broke the camel's
Oh,
back.
yeah.
And I will, yes, the straw that's what it is. The straw. I'm like, wait, the haystack and the needle. The straw that broke the camel's back. That makes more sense. But I will never forget this because when I left in the middle of the day. I literally there was so much going on, and I left. The other owner was a mentor for me, so I was trying to remain respectful. And I asked her. I said before I left, I said it's not good for business if I leave in the middle of the day because I have clients booked out. So I'm willing to stay until the end of the day. I will not tell them I'm leaving. I will not, because at the time I had signed a non-compete and I thought those held up really well. They don't. But anyways, in my state at least. But I offered that because I wanted to be, I cared. I actually genuinely cared about that place. And she looks at me and she goes, I don't care. The moment she said that, I was like, okay, if you don't care about your business, why the heck am I putting my blood, sweat, and tears into this? Because I truly love that place. I truly loved my clients.
Absolutely.
I was like, this is not And I
Floored.
left. 2 months later, exactly. 2 months later, I got myself a salon suite, and the rest is history. So,
Yeah, it was meant to be,
yeah,
clearly. I
exactly.
love
No, it
it.
worked out. But that would
Yeah.
be one of the cues for me. If you're like if you're on the fence of like, do I want to go off into business on my own or do I not? If the work you're doing as a employee already feels too much and you're like, I don't want to give anymore, entrepreneurship is going to make you give even more. That's not for you.
Exactly.
If you're like, I'm putting so much into it and I'm so passionate and I'm so passionate about my career, you might like it. Give it a try.
It's so funny that you say that because when I was in that position and ready to go, I had all of these, like, I'm so emotionally driven, so I'm just like, I have this gut
Yeah.
instinct that I'm done here, and I couldn't put words to it, and that's exactly how it was. I was like, why do I care more than the owner about this business? Like, that's
Yes.
crazy to me. And I'm working so much more. I'm coming up with ideas for them, and it's not mine. Like, this is bananas. I should be doing this for myself, and
Yes.
that's ultimately why I walked away. But I love how you put that into words because I feel like it really
Yeah.
encapsulates it so well.
And as an owner right now that's getting into the position of hiring people and building a team, I believe that if you are an employee, you should have boundaries with your business. Like you should
Mhm.
have, you can't care more than the business owner. That I
No,
would love for an employee to care about my business, but you shouldn't. The perks of being an employee and the perks of being in a career that you're an employee is that you can shut it off at the end of the day. Is that you
absolutely.
leave and you leave it there and you should have those boundaries. So it's not wrong to have those boundaries. If you're like, oh man, I just don't care enough. I'm not taking this career seriously because I don't care. You are. You're
Mhm.
just using the perks that are given to you as in I have to
And
have
I
boundaries
think
with work.
and I think you can care about what your job. You can
Mhm.
care about what you do when you're in
Yeah.
the business working and then switch it
Yeah.
off. Like there's I think that it
Yes.
gets a little confused. Like we're not saying you don't care at all. It's just that you can care about
Yeah.
your list of duties when you walk in and then you can leave and not be
Yeah.
worried about if the business is still upholding itself or anything like that.
Yes. And that's to me, you should do that if you're
Mhm.
a business. What and really that gets into like if you're a business owner, you have to learn how to do that for yourself. That's a whole
Mhm.
other conversation.
Yeah.
But as an employee, you are in a toxic work environment if you care more than your bosses. Like they want you to do
100%.
more.
And I think that
That's not okay.
as a boss,
Mhm.
you need to know that. Like, I love that you're saying, like, there's no way, as much as we would love for our employees to care as much, they shouldn't. And I love that you agree in that
Yeah,
standpoint because I think it
it's
makes
a
a big difference.
boundary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a boundary. It's a boundary. I think to me, you're gonna have better employees. You're gonna be happier in your job if, let's say, you are an employee and a parent, or a wife, or a husband, or whatever it is. You have things outside of work, and you can turn that off and go home and focus on these other aspects of your life, and then come back to work and give 100% in that time frame. Like you're a better employee for doing that than you are
Absolutely.
spreading yourself too thin.
Mm-hmm.
Where as a business owner, this is almost part of my identity in a way. Like
I
it's something that, like I
wholeheartedly
said, it's
agree with
like a
that.
child. It's a child for me. So
Exactly how
I'm
I
like,
feel.
this is,
It's so
I'm like, I
true.
don't want it. Don't tell my therapist that. But it feels almost like I'm like, I introduce myself. I'm like, hi, I'm Tamara and the brow artist. Like this is who
Literally.
I am.
I have nothing else to talk
Like,
about. I'm sorry.
hi. Exactly. Literally. I actually joke that my personality is just me regurgitating what my clients tell me because I live and breathe my business so much that every like fun fact that I have that's not about brows, it's just like my client who's a real estate agent
Right.
told me the market.
We have no truthful stories anymore. They're just
Exactly. They're like, what do you do
so
with your
true.
life? I don't know, but my client, she loves trampoline parks.
I live vicariously.
Yeah.
So true.
I'm like, oh, she
It's actually really boring.
exactly. I'm like, oh, I
So true. I feel the exact same way. Like they're really fun, so don't worry about it. I got stories.
exactly.
Fine.
They're like, well, and they do it with great brows.
Yeah, they do. It's like,
And that's where I come in.
oh my god, so funny. It's so true. It's so true. Okay, I want to circle back
So
a little
yeah.
bit. What got you
Yeah.
interested in the beauty industry to begin with?
Good question. I don't know if I got interested or if I fell into it.
Okay.
And I'm glad I did. But I was so young. I was 16 going on 17. I got a call from a friend of mine who used to work front desk at this place, and she goes, "Hey, I can't work it anymore. They're looking for someone. Do you want the job?" And it was literally Sundays for 5 hours. I was
Okay.
like a sophomore in high school, sophomore, junior, I can't remember. And I got working to it. I should backtrack and say I'm Brazilian, and in the beauty industry here in Georgia, it's dominated by Brazilians,
Oh,
specifically in the waxing industry.
okay.
So the place I worked with was Brazilian. I probably have more waxing friends, estheticians, than I do any other industry because it's just such a big thing for our culture here.
Okay, I love
And
it.
so she offered me the job. I started working front desk, and then slowly and surely, I was just like, "What are y'all doing? Like, what is this? what what is this hard wax that you're working with?"
Yes.
Like, and
The
so
curiosity.
the owner, yeah, the second owner, the one that I say that acted almost as my mentor, she was like, "I I really think they just weren't really a well structured business. Let's put it that way. So they have since closed, but they didn't really have like a hiring process. They like hired friends,
Okay.
and then they honestly every front desk that would come in there, they would train you, and they're like, "Hey, you should start waxing," and then somebody who had a license would then sign you when you became an apprentice, and that's kind of how they like employed themselves. Like
Okay.
built employees. And that's what happened to me. I started as a front desk on Sundays. Then on the weekends, I would start training for waxing. At 17 in the state of Georgia, you can be signed on to be an apprentice to get your license.
Okay.
And so I signed on to be an apprentice. It took 18 months, and you just have
Okay.
to log your hours. You have to like log your book hours. And then after 18 months, you take your test and you're a licensed esthetician if you pass, of course.
Yes. That's
um,
so interesting. So
yeah,
the
that's
apprenticeship kind of handled your practical, like essentially for earning your license.
yes. So yeah, so with an apprenticeship, it's longer, but it's something that has to be very well documented for the state, and they literally give you hours of like you sit down and you do a chapter in the book that took you 1 hour, you can cross off that hour. If you do a full leg wax, that's an hour. If you do facials, and you have to have like so many hours of each category.
Okay.
And then at the end, that will equal out to 1,800 hours, about 100 hours a month, I would say, right? Like that's
Mhm.
1,800 hours, 18 months. And this was back in the day, so I don't know if it's changed at all, but um, that's how I got it. And then at the end, you go and take a class, the state board exam, similar to just how everybody did it. If you went to school, you go and take
Mhm.
that same board exam, and you have to pass the exact same board exam. You just don't do it in a school setting, you do it in the work environment.
I
And
love
then
that.
you just, for your clients, you tell the clients, they tell the clients, "Hey, this is an apprentice." I don't know if the clients actually understand that you're an apprentice for a licensing, or if they're trying to be like, "Oh, we're training her." I don't know if the clients can make
I
that
can see the
connection.
clients getting confused with that, but I mean, I guess regardless, they're
Yeah.
they're aware that you're not like officially an
Yeah.
employee or
Like
whatever,
we're
even
starting.
whatever caliber.
Exactly. And so what they would do is like they would have us a client that had been going for a while. They would have the licensed esthetician in there, and then us that were apprentice would go in and like help. So literally, like there was one time I did one leg, the other person did the other. Like we did kind of that way.
Yeah, it's
um,
similar to like
so
I
that's
feel like
how I
beauty
got into it.
hairstylists a little bit. I
Yeah.
feel like they have
Yes.
more of that
Yeah.
apprentice style than our industry. So that's really cool that you had that style
Yes.
of entering the industry. I love that.
Of
It's a fun.
learning. So I didn't make the choice per se. I didn't say like,
Yeah.
let me Google the schools to go into and like I really fell into it, and I'm so glad I did because I love it so much. But it wasn't like I didn't make that like, man, I want to get into this career path. I was 17, just like, oh,
Yeah.
this is cool. What is this? Let me try
I
to
love
do
that it
it.
ended up being what you
Bruh.
wanted to do. Like, I love that you like, even though it wasn't
Yeah.
something you sought out, it's so clearly something you're very passionate about. And
Oh
it's such an
yeah.
interesting part. I love it. It's very unique.
Thank you. And that's the thing. It was, I got all my friends into it. And out of all my friends, I think, I'm the only one that actually continued. They tried to train my sister, my best friend. She worked front desk. They tried to train everybody, and all of them were like, eh. And I was like, this is
That's
fascinating, you guys. This is awesome. So
yeah.
I fell into it. But then once I got into it, I was like, I love wax. I just really loved wax. Wax was my biggest thing, and it still is. I will say this on record, I am an esthetician who hates facials. I do not do facials.
I
I
loved
do
them.
not do. Did
And
you?
then yeah, I did. I loved them. That was why I got into the industry to begin with, was facials.
Yeah.
And then once I got
Mm-mm.
the threading and I started doing brows, I was like, wow, the passion is zapped. I'm like, I don't care about it.
You're
I
like,
got
this is.
exhausting. I was like, well, like this is
I
boring.
did
Oh my
enough
God.
facials. Literally, I did it. That was exactly my thing. I did enough facials to pass the exam. And then after that, I didn't touch it again. I was like, I tell my clients all the time. They ask me about skincare in terms of that doesn't have to do with brows, but something
Uh-huh.
about acne or something on their chin. And I'm like, look, ma'am, let me send you to this person because I cannot answer that.
I got a list of referrals
That is
for
not.
you.
Yes. I was like, I have not touched that in a long time. I can't even build a skincare routine for myself. I'm not even gonna lie to
I
you.
did the same thing. I'm like, I'm not even doing it anymore.
I asked my esthetician what she recommends, and it ain't me. Also leads on. Yes. Which also leads on to the whole point of, like, if we're talking about careers, I do believe specializing is crucial to build a career in this field.
Couldn't agree
Crucial.
more.
Like, you can. I have heard. I was listening to another podcast of a friend of mine, which I don't even know the name of the podcast, but he talks about how he doesn't like to do one thing only. And so what he did is, in order to specialize, he did it from the neck up, I think is what he calls it. So he does facials and brows and like neck up waxing, but that's his specialty. And I'm like, all right, I feel like that works. Like,
Yeah.
you're not doing a
Agree.
whole bunch of stuff.
We
The
honestly,
neck
in our
up.
industry, we do kind of have to piece the body apart, like for pricing and like things like that. So I guess we're already kind
Oh,
of
for sure.
compartmentalizing the body
Like,
as far as services go.
yeah.
Yeah.
And specializing doesn't just mean like you only do brows. It could mean
Absolutely.
you do brows, facials, like you work on the face versus body
Hmm.
waxing or that type of thing.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I do believe specializing is crucial for this career.
I agree. Once I niched to just brows, I feel like I always say that, like that's when my business blew up. It was just like everything got a lot clearer. The clarity was there once I niched down. And I think that's a really big part of it that's very
You know how to
helpful
market.
yeah, exactly. It makes it easier. I feel like
If you niche down, yeah.
yeah, you have almost have too much
If you
going
niche
on if you have a lot
down, well, if you niche down, you know exactly who you're talking to. And this goes into, if you want to be a business entrepreneur, if you want to go a solo entrepreneur, marketing is one of those skills you're going to have to build. You're going to have to love and embrace, probably not love, but you have to embrace. Most people hate that part, but you have to embrace it. I was like, you might not have to love it, but you have to embrace it. And if you niche, you know who you're talking to. So
Yeah.
that makes it a lot easier. You're not throwing stones everywhere or throwing and seeing whatever sticks. My little analogies are not making any sense today.
I'm
We're
thinking about
throwing
what you're putting down.
stones. As long as you guys understand.
Right.
But like, you're just throwing and seeing what sticks. No,
Yeah.
if you niche down, you know exactly who you're talking to, which is the number one step in marketing, is who is
Agreed.
your audience. I actually listened to your episode about this. You had an episode about this, didn't you? About marketing.
Yeah.
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 I listen to podcasts. I love podcasts.
Finding your ideal client is really tricky, and I think you have to get really
Yes.
clear about it. Otherwise, it's really difficult. You have no
And-
idea who you're talking to.
Your clarity comes from niching. What do you want to do? Who do you want on your table? Who is that person?
Who do you want to work with? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Exactly. And that comes with the service you're offering.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
So I know you said that you fell in love with waxing. What got you into doing threading? Like, how did you learn how to thread?
So threading is something that I've wanted to do for the longest. And to be honest, I've been working towards it for God, like at least 6 years.
Okay.
The way I got into threading, it was just so I do believe niching down it is important, but I believe that I'm a brow artist, and therefore, if it has to do with brows, natural brows specifically, I don't work with permanent makeup, but natural brows, I want to be the expert in it. Is how I decide where like classes I'm taking, developing skills, that type of thing. And really, with the rise of retinoid use, with the rise of skincare, it is almost out of like 10 clients you have in a day, five of them are using something that contraindicates with waxing. Um, and so I didn't want to be like, well, you know what you should do? You should stop it for at least 2 weeks before. And then they go to an esthetician and their esthetician is like, dude, no, you have
Why
to
are
stay
you doing
consistent. It's kind of just going head in head. And I'm like, I don't want that for my clients. And so before I was very confident in my threading skills, I used to do a tweeze only, and that is just it can be done. It just hurts so bad on your wrist.
You're
Like I was
kidding.
like, I'm gonna get arthritis.
That's
Yes.
true. I do that all the time. I'm like, I don't know who would want to do that, but that's not me.
Hey, it's Emily here from Brow Fox Beauty. I'm so proud to be sponsoring this episode of Brow Education. If you are new here, let me tell you a little bit about Brow Fox Beauty. We are a professional brow line for the esthetician. We specialize in easy retail for the busy esthetician. We also have a line of better back bar basics so you can be super confident putting pre and post wax solution and massage oil onto your client's skin, giving them the best glow and the best brows yet. You can find more information at browfoxbeauty.com or on social media at browfoxbeauty.
And that is just it can be done. It just hurts so bad on your wrist.
You're
Like I was
kidding.
like, I'm gonna get arthritis.
That's
Yes.
true. I do that all the time. I'm like, I don't know who would want to do that, but that's not me.
I've done it. And I still have people who do because there's some people who love tweeze onlys, which I'm like, I'll do it. It's fine. I am a brow
Mhm.
artist. I'm an expert. But I'm always
Yes.
like, how about thread? And
Literally.
I'm not gonna lie, threading was just threading was just one of those skills that took me a little bit longer to really feel confident in. At first, I couldn't figure it out. Like I'm like the actual like, the going back and forth. It was like what that my brain felt like when you're tapping your head and
Yes,
circling your
I say that
stomach.
that's the exact thing I tell my clients all the time. I'm like, even when they're holding, I'm like, I swear, it's your brain is just like, what?
What are you doing? Yeah. So
Mhm.
that's how I got into it. And so little but one thing I do not do is give up. So I was like, no, I'm gonna figure this out. Like I've threaded my leg more than I've waxed it probably. So I'm like, no. I'm like, we're figuring this
Our
out.
favorite way to practice
And
threading.
so yeah. Exactly. And this is a great way if you're trying to get into threading, but you're like, you don't feel comfortable. And so then what I started doing is I would thread only the top and then tweeze the bottom because the bottom you have to be
Right.
way more you have to have control of your
Yes.
wax. I feel but not your wax, your thread a lot more
Mhm.
than the top. Not that you don't have to have it on the top, but the top is straight lines.
And
And
I think the
so
other thing
I was
is,
like,
it's the skin, like how thin the skin is in this area, and there's hands in the
yes,
way, like you have the positioning. So I could definitely see this is a
yes,
lot easier to get going first. Yeah, I agree.
yes. And so I was like, I'm going to practice on the top. And so for my clients that did a tweeze only, I'd be like, hey, do you want to do some threading at the top? It's going to be cleaner. Blah, blah, blah. So I would do the top and then like down here on the tail end of the brow,
Mhm.
just to like get into it. And then I would just sit there and like tweeze the rest. Or if when I did start going towards the bottom, I would really only do down here and then like tweeze everything else until I started to be like, oh, I got this. Like my brain started patting and circling the stomach. And I was like, oh, I got it. I got it. Like it does it
I love
automatic
it.
now.
No,
So
absolutely.
it took me a few years, I would say, to feel like, all right, I feel confident that you can walk in and I can thread you. And I'm not gonna leave a hole in your eyebrow.
Yes. Oh my
I'm
gosh.
not gonna do anything. And
So
that's how I got into threading. So it was just
did you do any formal training, or did you just straight up teach yourself over the course of those years?
half and half. I did one formal training with threading. So we did have one threader in the place that I used to work. She's Middle
Okay.
Eastern. I feel like they're born doing it. She's
Mhm.
Persian, and so
Mhm.
she was like, "Nah, I did this since I was a kid."
Yeah.
And so I remember she kind of taught me. She trained me, but like she did the neck one, and I really couldn't figure out the neck one. And
I
then
can't either.
I did right, I did a training with Kelly Baker Brow. She doesn't do threading, but I did a training with Kelly Baker Brows in California, and
Mhm.
I couldn't find a threading here in Atlanta that would teach threading here. And so when I went to go do this training with Kelly, I remember finding someone that did threading training there, and I took her class. But it was an interesting class. It was kind of during the end of the pandemic a little bit, like
Mhm.
2021. 2021. And she did it out of her house, but then like it was like a weird, I don't know, it didn't feel very structured, but she did, I feel like I did grasp a little bit more of like where the lines are going and what the brow looks like when you stretch it. So to know where
Mhm.
I'm trying to take it off. Um, and then after that, it was a lot of self-taught, like
Yeah.
YouTubing and practicing on my leg, and which is kind of, so I took one class. And when
Yeah.
I'm saying one class, like one class, because it was a
Loosely.
very interesting, like, not to say that she can't teach it out of her house, she
Oh,
could, but
yeah.
it felt very pieced together. It was very like, here you go, like here's a class, and I'm like, I remember I asked for a manual to be like, hey, do you have anything that I can like refer back to afterwards? And she sends me this like email, and it was like, threading is organic, and I was like, okay, but what about how I hold the string? I'm like, okay, but it was I did get something from it for sure. But it
Yeah.
wasn't like a class, you know.
Yeah. Honestly,
Ah,
as
yes.
a mentor in the whole process, I
Yeah, yeah,
recommend doing it
yeah.
to solidify that skill.
I would say it probably took me like a year because I was teaching it myself pretty much. I would
Yeah.
probably say it took me a year. And it's like that confidence thing of like, I probably could have done it quicker, but I was just like, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
It's scary.
Like, I
It's
don't want to, yeah,
scary.
like, I don't want to learn at the expense of someone's eyebrows, you know? So it was like, let
Exactly.
me,
Right. Can I do
and
your
so,
cheek?
but I am a person that I am like, no, I can figure this out. I don't,
I
I
think that's an
don't.
entrepreneurial skill. We will Google art desire.
I'll
We'll
YouTube
figure it out.
everything. Like, you're like, this can be done.
Yeah.
And then I'll take a class. I'll take a class somewhere, and I'm like, I could have done this like a year ago had I just taken this class. Why am I trying to figure this
The amount of time.
out? Like, what the heck?
My God. And you're like,
I'm like,
money
somebody
saved,
can
time.
explain this to me. Exactly. Like, I could have
So
done
true.
this. So yeah,
It's
for
so
sure.
true.
But that's how I got into it. It was
I love that. I literally love that. I noticed, like, just switching gears a little bit, your social media following is you've got a great following, and I love your
thank
content and
you.
everything. I was wondering if you had any tips for somebody newer just starting out to kind of grow their community on Instagram, social media,
On
wherever.
social media. So I could give you tips that's like, I feel like everyone knows. Post a lot, make videos, get out there. But I would say the thing that resonates most with me is, and it's gonna sound a little cringy, but is embarrass yourself, is how I put it. And I
Okay.
always say this to my students. I want you to wake up every day and say, have I embarrassed myself today? And the reason I say this is because on social media, you have to embrace being uncomfortable. You have to embrace putting yourself out there. And you can't, I don't need to tell you like how to beat the algorithm, how to da, da, da. Like you can Google that and you'll figure those tips out. But it's really hard to be like, well, how do I actually gain the courage to post myself, to talk and be in front of a camera, to be part of it? And the way I view it is like, embarrass yourself.
I love that.
I always say things that are embarrassing to, or things that you feel embarrassed by is not necessarily embarrassing.
That's
Um,
mhm.
you have to learn the difference.
Mhm.
So you may feel embarrassed about posting yourself, putting yourself out there, talking on camera, posting on stories, but that doesn't mean it's actually embarrassing. But I want you to really embrace that feeling that embarrassment isn't going to kill you, and that you can post, and that you can create videos, and you can get it wrong. You can create a video and then be like, oh, shoot, that was wrong. Like I've done that
Yeah.
plenty of times when people call me out and I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. Now that I think about it, maybe that wasn't the best way. Or like this is, and it all
Yes.
comes with embracing that it's embarrassing. Posting on social media is embarrassing. Like there's no other way of posting it. It's weird. It's like this
Yes.
weird creating content. So like I would, what is that? Like what would Jesus do? No, I want you to be like, well, have I embarrassed myself
I
today? And if
love
I haven't,
that.
what am I going to do to embarrass myself?
That's a great
Um
tip.
and then yeah, the other one would be put put your face to it, which goes into the embarrassment. You could try, and it can be done where it's like, well, I don't feel comfortable on camera, and I don't, and it's okay. But it does go a lot farther, and I think I've experienced more growth when I put my face to it, when people heard my voice, when there's personality there, and so can it be done? Yes. Is it easier? No. If you don't
Mhm.
put your face to it, which
I
is
think
why I say
also,
embarrass yourself.
yeah, and I think also depending on like who you are listening to this, but as a brow artist or a service provider, your face is
Yeah.
required on your social media because it makes them feel more comfortable with you. If like I
Yeah.
love when a new client walks into my studio space and they look directly at me because they're like, "Oh, I follow you online. I know what you look like. I know what you're about."
Yeah.
They're so much more confident entering our studio space when they know who we are. So, as much as I would love to tell you that you don't need your face or social
Yeah.
media for our industry, you do.
You kind of do. And that's the thing. You have to understand that when you're selling a service, I'm not going to lie, there are a million of fantastic brow artists in my area that could do just as great, if not better than me. I'm not even going to lie. Like there's a very, very great artists in my area. It's a competitive field, but they exist. What I think sets me apart, and it will set you apart too, and this isn't like a competition thing, but it sets you apart, is the ambiance you create in your studio space. I know that there's people that come to see me because they like chatting with me. They like being in the same space that I offer to them something that they find enjoyable. Now, am I everybody's cup of tea? Absolutely not. But one of the ways that you can sell that to the person, you can show that, is through your social media. Through your
Mhm.
social media, people will come in and be like, oh my God, I just love following you. I love watching your stories. So I felt like it was something that I wanted to come in and experience. And like, yeah, I do great brows, but also like, I've literally, I'm not even joking. I've had people come in and hug me, never met me before. And they hug me and they're like, oh my God, I love you so much. And they just like, you know, I'm like, I don't
Same.
know who you are.
Yes, it's
But
the
because
weirdest
I,
feeling.
I put myself
Appreciate.
out there that way. I mean, I'm super social, so I'm like, yeah, come on in.
Which is funny. I'm like the
But it's
exact
a thing.
opposite, but I feel the same. I'm so introverted, but I when I'm focusing on social media, I have to put my
Yeah,
extroverted boots on and really focus on that
I'm
social
so
aspect.
extroverted. Yeah,
That's a
but
benefit.
but it's I talked to one of my students about this because we were talking about what in part of my courses I talk about the business of brows and how to market yourself and stuff like that. And I remember talking to her and she goes, "But I'm just not that social. I don't like that's not me." And I'm like, That's not the point. The point isn't to be social, to force yourself to be social. The point is to show people who you are." And so she goes, "I love doing massages. I love the tranquil vibe. I love to preface, I hate doing massages. My whole setup is not a relaxing setup. My setup is fun, energetic, like that's my vibe. But she loves the tranquil, the massaging part of the business. And I'm like, show that. It's not, don't
Yes,
try to be me. And guess what? There are
absolutely.
people who love getting the massages and love, like, they take those 30 minutes to just relax and sit there and quiet. Guess who they're going to go to? They're going to go to you, not to me, because I will talk your head off. Like,
Exactly. It's
but
finding that
show that.
ideal client. It's finding your ideal client for what
Exactly.
works with you. And the
Show
more
that.
you make it you, the better you're gonna find those people that are seeking
Yes.
your style
And
out.
that's exactly. And that's what you're showing on social media. That's
Mhm.
that's the number one thing. It's show who you are. What is it that you are trying to sell to the person? Not the service, but like
Mhm.
the environment, the
Embodiment.
entirety of the whole thing. And that is you. That is in essence you. So you have to put yourself out there, which means you have to embarrass yourself. You have to feel embarrassed. If you're not feeling embarrassed, you didn't put yourself out there enough. If you
I
don't
think you're
do the
right.
whole like post it, if you don't post it, put your phone down and turn around and just be like, I'm not looking at my social media for the rest of the day today. You didn't do it right, okay?
I remember my first
I've done that
story
so many
being like,
times.
like
You'll
doing
post
all
something, you're
my
like, that
stories
one
with
for real
no
bad.
sound on, so I don't have to hear my voice.
Yes. I'm like, if it didn't make you cringe a little, you didn't push hard enough. Push a little harder.
So
Like,
true.
go a little more.
Yeah.
So that would be my biggest tip. And then everything else, I promise you can Google it.
Yeah. You're so
You
right.
can Google how to beat the algorithm. What is the best times to post? How many things? Make sure to add words to your reels, like all those types of
And those
stuff.
are
It
so
changes
generic.
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to us specifically. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very generic. And it changes as the algorithms change and stuff like that. So it's hard to be like, this is the one trick, because tomorrow that trick is not going to work anymore.
You're totally
It
right.
changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I also saw that you work with your significant other in your business.
I
Which
do.
I
It's
love
my husband and
that.
I.
I want to hear a little bit more about
Yes.
that relationship and how that goes for you guys.
Yeah. So yeah, we have been working together full time for about a year and a half now. But he has been a part of my business, God, since I started. So I got married, and then like 3 months later, no, a few more than that, I started the business.
Okay.
And the reason I started the business was, the whole blow up with my ex-boss happened. And I come home and he's like, I got it. I'll take care of the bills. We're going to live off of one income. Just go do the business. And I was like, cool. So he has been a support system for me since the beginning.
I love that.
And then about a year and a half ago, he was working and he hated his job. He ended up hurting his back or had a pinched nerve. He couldn't really move and he had to take some time off from work, and he was just laying there and he's like, oh man, I really don't want to go back. I don't love it. And he was thinking about what other things he could do. And I had that moment of like, dang, I get to do this for you now. That what you did for me in the beginning.
Yeah.
I was like, quit that job and let's figure out what you like. And then as he quit, we started working on the business together, and I could see that he really enjoyed it. He does all the admin and like the more logistical side of the business now. He really enjoyed it, and it's been history ever since, I guess.
I love
And so
that.
it was challenging in the beginning, because going from a solo entrepreneur to like, oh, we co-own this together now, but like we've always co-owned it together, but now he has his hands in it. I was like,
Yes.
what do you mean you're trying to take stuff? Like, I'm such a, like, I'm like, I want it done like this and this. And he's like, why? If the result is the same, why does it have to be done?
So true.
So we definitely got into some arguments. We butted heads a little. But I feel like we've gotten into a good workflow of like, this is your tasks in the business. These are my tasks in the business. We come together once a month or once a week and like talk it out structuredly. We talk about it all the time,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we come together once a week and we're like, this is what we're both, what we're both working on. And yeah, I wouldn't have been able to expand, I don't think, had it been for his help. I mean, I would have, but it would have made it a lot harder. Let's put it that
Taking more
way.
time, maybe.
And so, yeah. And so since he was able to come in full time, and it was amazing because I'm going to pat myself on the back, but I built a business that could pay both him and I. It employs both of us together,
Such an
which is
accomplishment.
crazy. It's crazy to think about. And so, yeah, when he came in, we were like, okay, now we have the manpower to grow, because I can focus on clients and then he can focus on the other things that need to be done. Because like I have all the ideas. I call myself the idea person. He's the executioner.
I love
Is
that.
that the word? Yeah, because all the ideas come with, I don't know if that's the word, but you guys got it.
Yeah.
With all the ideas come all the paperwork and the calling the HR specialist and calling the lawyers and calling this and making sure your bookkeeping is correct. And
as a creative, we love the ideas. That's what fuels our passion, but not so much the admin. That's like,
oh,
it can be
I
so
suck
crushing
at
to
doing
creative.
it.
So it's really nice to have that other
I
person
have
that can step in
so
and
many
help.
ideas.
Yes.
Yes.
I love it.
And so
I
yeah,
love
well, actually, one of the funny things is until he came into the business, I didn't know what profit margins were. We were talking about that in careers and stuff like that. He came in about a year and a half ago, and he really focused on learning how to do um, the finances of the business, but really understand where the money is going, how we do things, even down to like how we file taxes, being an LLC entrepreneur versus an S corp, and payrolling myself so that we can save money on taxes, like things of that sort, was all handled. We both did it together. We took classes and stuff like that with our accountant together. But had he not come in, I wouldn't have the mental space to do that
it.
and go into education and teach and create my courses and take my clients, and like it's just
Yeah,
too
it's
much
too
to
much.
be doing by
Yeah.
myself. And so his position in the business is like really what catapulted us forward in the last 2 years. Where before it was just kind of like a smooth oiled machine or a well-oiled machine. It was just moving
Hmm.
smoothly. And then he came in and I felt like he like lit the gas behind us, like,
Yeah.
all right, we can do this. But yeah, it definitely took some time for me to learn to let go and be like, okay, you can do it.
As an
I
entrepreneur, it's
trust you.
so freaking hard.
That is the
It's
hardest thing
hard.
about entrepreneurship is like you're begging for help, but then when somebody tries to help, you're like, no, you're doing it wrong.
I regularly say
Please.
I'm like the worst delegator ever. I'm like, I don't want to tell you how to do it. I just want to do it and get it done. Like it's the worst. It's one of my biggest flaws, I swear.
Are you even an entrepreneur
Yeah, right.
if you try to do everything and not delegate? Everyone always says
Seriously.
delegate. I'm like, okay, it's a lot harder than you think. Okay.
It's so much harder. Oh my god, it's so true.
The thing
Well,
is,
that being
you have to take double the amount of time to teach someone something you could do it in half the time.
it's
But
exhausting.
this doing half the time means you're doing everything. You're not
I-
being efficient. So you
Not at
have to
all.
learn to slow down to
It's
pick
so
back
hard.
up.
You're so right. You're so right. Well, that being said,
It's
now
needed.
that you said you've expanded in your space, do you have any plans to
Yeah.
hire other brow artists or other beauty professionals?
Yes.
Yay!
Yes, that is 100% our plan. I would love to bring in one or two more brow artists in the next coming, that's our this year's plan. And then I would love to bring in a body specialist, a body wax specialist,
Yeah.
just because I have a lot of people that seek that out for me, but that is not my focus. So I would love
Hmm.
to have someone there that is their complete focus. um so yeah, we're working on that now. I'm navigating right now, I'm kind of navigating the emotions and the like structuring of it all so that I feel like I can be the best employer that I can. And I don't want to repeat the story of where I came from. I'm very, very passionate about that. And so right now I've been doing just a lot of research, a lot of courses and classes and things like that on how to like leadership skills. And before I even take someone in, so that I feel more confident in that of like whoever I put in there, I can aid in growth and building their career and see
Hmm.
where their career takes them. Which is why I'm so passionate talking about how like this is a career and it's legitimate no matter how
Yeah,
you choose to do it. And
I
so I
love
would
that.
love for my space to nurture that. So I'm taking it very slow. Uh, I'm a, I always say, I may build a parachute, make sure I have a second parachute, then jump type of person. I'm not a like
I
jump and
love
see if I can
that.
fly. I
Uh-huh.
create all the background. So I didn't feel ready to be like, I want to put someone in there until I feel like I have the structure in place. But that is the
Mhm.
goal. And we'll see how that goes. But then also sometimes you have to jump. So I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
rip the band-aid and go for it.
you can only be so ready.
Exactly. We're just gonna have to figure it out. So I'm definitely getting to that point of like, all right, dude, you've researched enough. Let's actually
Yeah.
like hold our breath and just go for it. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's we've expanded with that in mind. So
I
hopefully
love
by
that.
next month we start interviewing processes and stuff.
Yay! Oh my gosh, congrats to you guys. That's super
Yes.
duper exciting.
Thank
Um,
you. Thank you very much.
okay, so we are nearing the end. This was so quick and
Oh
so
my
easy. I
goodness.
feel like we've just been chatting
That was
forever.
right? Right?
I think I sent you a
Like,
couple
what am I saying?
other questions. I think one was your favorite
Yes.
ingredient right now.
Yes. So my favorite ingredient right now, I was like that question stumped me when you sent it. I was like, "Oh, I don't know." But you
I
know
was
what?
stuck in ingredient
I
mode.
got I was like, my favorite ingredient. You know what it is though? Because I wanted it to be like, let me find something fancy. I like, nope, it is not. My favorite ingredient right now is petroleum or petrolatum,
Okay.
specifically. So Vaseline. I have my little aquaphor here. I'm holding it.
Yeah.
But petrolatum. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but petroleum. I'm just gonna say petroleum. We all know petroleum
Yeah.
jelly. The reason I love that ingredient, and I think it's so important for brow artists, is especially if you do tinting, is because it is the perfect ingredient to stop water loss from the skin. And so if you have clients who have patchy tint, or if their brows are flaking or anything like that, teach them to do it before their appointment, 24 hours before their appointment. Have them exfoliate their brows gently, put a normal moisturizer, something that brings moisture to the skin, and then put a little bit of Vaseline over it the night before. The brows are going to be perfectly smooth the next morning, and the tint is going to go on beautifully. So that's
So
where
simple
petroleum
and
jelly is the
so
perfect ingredient.
perfect. Oh my god, it's so simple, but it's so perfect. I
That's,
love that.
I
I
know.
love that.
I was like, what's the ingredient? And I was like, what do you
That's
mean? I've been
really
using it.
it's
I was
such a
putting it on
great
my lips,
it's such a great tip for any
and
artist. Like
everyone
that's
has
brilliant.
it.
Yeah, and everyone's run into that issue.
So
I don't know about
everyone,
artists that have it.
especially well now, we're coming out of the winter months, but this is especially important
True.
for the winter months. So I think that's
Mm,
why it's my ingredient of choice now. But it's just such a good. I think it gets such a bad rap because people are like petroleum. How, and I'm like, no, petrolatum. It's the refined version of petroleum. It's not petroleum. You're not
yes.
putting oil
Yeah.
on your face, y'all.
Well,
Like
and I
crude
use it
oil.
right. I use it for my my barrier balm for my laminations. I use Vaseline to like
Yes,
go around the skin to protect it. So it's just a really, really handy occlusive agent. I mean, you can't go wrong
yes, exactly.
with it.
So that's my favorite ingredient.
I love that. And then what are your top three like must-have items or self-care item or
Okay, items. Whew. Okay, so that also so like all the questions I was like, oh my goodness. So
we're
like
getting to know
self-care
you?
items. So I don't right I don't know if this counts as an item, but I did put on my list. I put in my subscription to my telehealth therapist.
I love
That's
that.
a huge self-care item.
Huge.
If you are a business owner, if you are a business owner or just in the as a career person in general, learning how to navigate stress and learning how to navigate anxiety and embarrassing yourself, going back to that, learning
Yes.
how to navigate and process feelings are so important. And personally, I speak about this a lot on my social media, but I'm diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder. So I have OCD.
Mhm.
And so I do my telehealth through a company called NOCD.
Okay.
I believe theirs is Treat My OCD online. But I have a subscription to them, and I meet with a therapist once a week for managing stress levels, anxiety, depression. So that would be my number one. My second one would be I don't know why I'm like all over the place, but I just in my new space I created like a little sanitation station.
Oh, I love
And
that.
it's just made my job so much easier. So it's very
Yeah.
structured of like, this is where I put my tools. This is where I clean them. This is where I soak them in barbicide. This is where we dry them. And it's like a whole, it's so like, so perfectly organized. And it's just made that portion of the business so easy. So my sanitation station
I
is
love
like my
that.
third. I don't know if any of these count as items,
No, you're
but
doing it.
that
It's
is
perfect.
it.
I love this.
Like, and then my third item as a brow artist will have to be, and this is my overall best item, is the Kelly Baker Brow pencil, filling in pencil in the color brown. It's just such
Okay.
a universal shade. It's such a universal shade that I would say like 92. I'm gonna give it 92% of my clients I can use this shade on. It's just a
Okay.
perfectly neutral brown. It's probably the one I retail the most because I genuinely love it. And so that would be
Uh-huh.
like my third item that I absolutely
Ooh,
love.
I'm gonna
So
have to try it. I
therapist,
love
sanitation
that.
station, and a pencil.
That's
The Kelly
brilliant.
Maker Brown
I
Brown
swear
pencil.
that is like entrepreneur brain right there.
Right. I'm like, what's the I
All
was
of my
looking for items and I was like, I don't know.
No, that's
But yeah,
perfect.
those
And I
are my
love that
things.
you recently expanded so you can have like your full sanitation station. Like these are the things that we like
Yes.
get so excited about when we actually have the space to do what we want with it.
We like think about it. We're like, yes. Literally, as I was like going through locations, I'm like, where's my sanitation station going? I'm like, I don't want to be crouched over cleaning my tools anymore.
Oh my god, it's so good. Now
So I
I'm
love
like, where
that.
can I put one? I love this.
Where does it go?
Where's mine?
But yeah, I love it.
Okay, before we go, I love that so much. Before we're done with this, I just want to ask really quickly, do you have anything going on, anything coming up that you want to talk about? Kind of plug yourself here.
Not necessarily at the moment. I'm actually, well, I am working on doing some digital programs, some digital education classes. I don't have a release date just yet because as we were talking about, I'm very like a little bit of a perfectionist. So I'm just making sure everything is in the right
Yeah.
place. But if you would like to keep up with me, you can definitely find me on social media at Tamara Samara. It's
And
the
I'll tag
same
all of
name
our
twice,
information.
one with a
So,
T. Oh, awesome.
yeah,
Perfect.
all of your stuff will be on my
And
website.
so awesome, perfect. And so yeah, I would say that's kind of in the next coming up. I would hope before the summer is the where we're going into. And so the first class that I'm working on is a very detailed mapping class for eyebrow mapping. And the reason I'm going for that is because I do believe that mapping or learning how to shape a brow is like the base of everything for you to build on. And so
Exactly.
I like to use my technique. I call it the geometric method of
Okay.
mapping. And the reason I like it is because it's a mapping version. It's a mapping technique that teaches you how to not have to use a mapping technique over time. It teaches you how to shape so you can remove that. So you can remove the need for mapping. So that would be my first online class that I'm currently working on. Don't have a release date yet, but if you'd like to keep updated, I do post it on my Instagram, TikToks, and all that. But
Such a
that's
great skill
possibly
to
the
have too as a brow artist. It's so important.
yes,
And I feel like as a
absolutely.
educator, I get asked that all the time. That's one of the top questions is how do you shape brows?
Yeah,
And I think honestly, it's so crazy because we know even one hair can make such a huge difference. So it's a
huge
tricky skill
difference.
to learn.
Huge difference. And
I
that's the
love
thing. I
that.
think that there's a lot of methods out there that kind of make you get stuck in it, where it's like you have to do this and this and this. And I like to think of mapping as like it should aid you into seeing the brow shape, even if you don't put anything down, or you can skip mapping eventually because you know how to shape a brow. Your
I see that.
mapping technique should help you see the brow, not the other way around.
Yep.
And so that's kind of where I'm coming from with that part.
Yeah. It just used as a crutch. It doesn't need to be something that you can't like I feel like there's so
Yes.
much of the I know that there's a social media aspect because it is fun to see the mapping and see the what you're
Yeah,
viewing in
yeah.
your head, but I feel like there's so much to be said to developing that eye and having that
Hmm.
truly in your
Well,
skill set.
to me too, if you are mapping and you don't know what the outcome is going to look like. So if your mapping is showing you what the outcome is going to look like versus you know what the outcome is going to look like and your mapping is going to make it more precise,
Mhm.
you're depending too much on the mapping. The mapping
Mhm.
should make it more a little bit more precise. It's a great way for you to show the client something before you do anything permanent or semi-permanent,
Mhm.
but it shouldn't you should already know what it looks like before you put something down. And if the technique you're
Absolutely.
using doesn't build that skill, that eye for you, then it's not a technique that's aiding you. It's not, it's holding you back really,
And
is
I
how
think
I
there's
see it.
if like you're saying, like if you can't see the shape, how do you know that you're mapping correctly? Like if you don't it can still come
Yes.
out wonky. I've seen mapping done, weirdly and like the results were
Hmm.
not there. Like it's not something that is
Yeah.
without fail every single time. You do really have to have that
Yes.
skill. And I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the
That'll be
first
awesome.
one that we're coming out with.
I love that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This was so much fun.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
loved it. Thank you so much for having
yay,
me.
yes. I'm so stoked. I can't wait for this to come out for everybody.
Ah,
But yeah, this was so much fun. You were a pleasure and so much information and knowledge. It was awesome.
thank you so much. Thank you very much for having me. I loved it.
All right, I'll catch you guys next week. I hope you have a great rest of your Thursday.